What began as an experiment to bring my 11-year-old daughter into my business has evolved into Our Young Creators, a podcast, a training center, and a movement dedicated to equipping kids with real-world marketable skills so that they can fund their own brighter futures. We're here to inspire you to turn consumption time on devices into creation time and use technology as a tool to bond and not bicker with your kids. Join us each week as we share the inner workings of our partnership and bring you stories from guests of all ages and from all walks of life on our quest to nurture and to celebrate our young creators. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, I want to find out where you hang out all day long. Before we dive into this very juicy topic, I want to say welcome. If this is your first time tuning in live, catching the replay, or listening on the podcast, I'm so glad you found us. My name is Yang Pratt, and I'm the Chief Dreamer right here at OYC. And today we're going to dive into a topic that I've been diving into personally and would love to invite you along on the journey. As you are tuning in live, leave me a comment, say hello, and let me know you're here. If you're catching the replay, type in #replay. And if you're listening on the podcast, you can head over to our website and leave me any comments or questions you have about this particular topic. So where do you hang out all day long? Now, I'm not talking where you hang out physically or your physical space like your office. What I'm wanting to dive into today is the space where you're spending your time in that mental space. If you have tuned into previous videos or podcasts, you may remember hearing me talk about the book, The Big Leap. In this book, Gay Hendricks goes into 4 specific zones where people are spending their time. Now, if you haven't heard of these zones, let me break them down for you. These 4 zones are the zone of incompetence, the zone of competence, the zone of excellent, and at the very top where he recommends we spend most of our time is our zone of genius. Now, before I read this book, I had heard about those particular zones, but not put into that kind of order. So let me give you some examples. Your zone of incompetence. For me, if I were to go out and try to rebuild an engine in our garage because I could, that would be something that I would need to do a lot of research on. I probably would need to enlist a lot of help because I know literally nothing about rebuilding an engine. So it would take me a lot of time and a lot of effort to get to a place where I was even competent at doing that. So for me, it would be a waste of my time completely to rebuild that engine because it does nothing for my business here. Hello, Deb. I am so glad you're tuning in live. I was thinking about you earlier today, so it's amazing that here you are showing up live. Now, in that zone of incompetence, being there for too long really drags me down because I'm not able to spend more time in the place where we all need to be spending more time, and that is the zone of excellence. So, again, rebuilding that engine has nothing to do with my business. It's not going to help drive me forward. I might want to, at some point, learn that as a hobby, but it literally has nothing to do with what I do here every day. And it's definitely an area of incompetence for me. Next, we have the zone of competence. Now, there's a lot of things that I can say I am competent at doing. I'm competent at sending emails and connecting things together. I am competent about cooking dinners most of the time. I am competent about being able to write my thoughts down. Sometimes, though, I forget that I do that. So it's kind of my zone of competence. I'm okay at them. But again, when I'm spending time there, I'm not, again, being able to spend time in my zone of genius. So next on the hierarchy is our zone of excellence. And for me, I have to say, a lot of the time I'm spending in my zone of excellence. I'm really great at doing things like strategizing a new funnel. I'm good at strategizing how to build relationships with my clients. Those are things that I really, really enjoy doing, that I do really well. But again, they're almost to my zone of genius, but not quite. I find that most of my days I'm spending time in either the zone of competence because maybe I want to learn something, but it doesn't necessarily propel my business forward in any meaningful way. And in my zone of excellence, I can also spend a lot of time here because I like doing these things. For instance, my zone of excellence also includes creating graphics that I share on my podcast, here on social media, and over on our website. I really, really, really enjoy doing those things. It comes easily to me. I'm very excellent at doing it. But again, it's not my zone of genius. So at the very top, the place that we all strive to get to is that zone of genius. And when you're working in your zone of genius, you'll know it. This is the place where when you dive into a project, you get into a state of flow where things come quickly and easily. You are super inspired. And that's what we are striving to do. So for me in our business, I would have to say that my zone of genius is being here with you live, being able to share my stories and speak and help you discover things about your own talents and the way you can share your messages. That's my zone of genius. Being able to teach classes and break things down to a really basic level so we can have wins. That's my zone of genius. And Deb, who is here, her zone of genius is absolutely inspiring other marketers to find their voice. I know that lights her up when she's giving us ideas on how to market our businesses better. And for me, that falls in my zone of competence. So I need to have Deb in my life to help me get closer to my zone of genius, or at least help me to create what I want to create for someone else to be able to take over at some point. She's really great at helping me find that part of me and tap in. So my question for you again is, where are you spending your time? Are you doing things in your business that are outside of your zone of genius? Maybe they're even in your zone of incompetence because maybe you don't have the money to invest right now. So you're diving headfirst into a new piece of software. You're spending hours watching videos, how to put things together, but it's not your passion. You're doing it because you maybe need to. And maybe that's part of how you're going to discover your zone of genius. But if we spend too much time in these other levels, these other zones, we're not able to make the kind of impact we were put on this planet to make. So, my challenge for you today is this. I want you to keep a notepad or maybe even just the notes app on your phone. And every hour or so, I want you just to write down what you were working on in that hour. And then classify them as zone 1, 2, 3, or 4. 1 being your zone of incompetence, and 4 being your zone of genius. Do this for a day and see if you notice any patterns. When I did this recently, I found that I spent time in the bottom 3 zones the majority of the time and very little time in my zone of genius. So moving forward, my plan is to be able to bring you more live trainings, more live interaction, because I know for me, this is how I can make the biggest impact. So I need your help, though. I need you to hold me accountable for showing up more frequently. Right now, I'm showing up live at least once a week to bring you a solo episode of the show and the podcast. And often I'll bring on somebody as a guest during the week as well. So that's 1 to 2 times per week. My goal is to do that more often for you. And what I want to do is bring you something called micro content. And this is mini short form content. You may have seen me do some experimenting a couple times with live videos here on this Facebook page that I was going to then use for my Alexa flash briefing. I'm going to continue to experiment with this idea of micro content because I know that we are all super busy. And I know that being able to set aside time to watch a 15, 20-minute video or listen to a 15, 20-minute podcast, on some days, that's a little much. So what I want to offer here is that I want to start bringing you some short content, little bite-sized nuggets you can take, listen to, and implement. So over time, we together can continually improve to make changes in our lives and our businesses, getting us closer to working in our zone of genius more often throughout the day. So once you have recorded how you're spending one day, maybe you want to push that out and do a whole week. And then at that point, you'll be able to see patterns. Are there certain times of the day you are engaging in different zones? Maybe your energy is higher in the morning. And if you're spending your time in your zone of excellence and not your zone of genius, how can you make those little shifts so you can work in your zone of genius more often? So I want to see your lists of where you are hanging out all day. Hello, Kim. Hello, Brandy. I'm so glad to see you here. So once you have recorded your lists, I would love for you to take a screenshot or share with me here on Facebook right under this video and let me know what you've discovered. Because if there's one thing I know that in this process of self-discovery and working on myself, not just on my business, but on my internal landscape and learning more things about these different zones and how I work in them and which zones I tend to stay in, that helps me to realize how I can push myself to that next level. And if there's any way that I can help you, propel you into your zone of genius, please don't hesitate to let me know. Okay, my friends, that is a wrap on today's video about the 4 zones mentioned in Gay Hendricks' book, The Big Leap. If you haven't read the book, I highly recommend If you want to listen on Audible, let me know. I'm happy to share that link with you to get a free book there as well. Okay, my friends, I wish you an amazing rest of your Tuesday. I'll be back again tomorrow. I have a guest on the podcast. Meg Brunson of the Entrepreneurial Family Podcast is going to be here. I'm excited to interview her. I hope you will be joining us, and I will catch you very soon. Cheers. If you're ready to harness the power of technology and get your message out into the world in a big way to make the impact you know you're meant to make for yourself, for your business, or with your family, head over to bit.ly/podcastinaweekend and save your seat in round number 3, which kicks off on Friday, November 16th. Save your seat now for Podcast in a Weekend at bit.ly/podcastinaweekend.